Hey guys, welcome to Sharks Academy, and in today's video I want to go through with you some of the trade ideas that we took this week and also the projections moving forward to next week. So right off the bat we have the euro dollar. You realize that we have an 8 hours break of structure and of course a 30 minutes shift in the structure over here, or 1 hour shift in the structure. And you see this by high, low, higher high, lower low. So these make a move up that grabs liquidity, then the breakdown. So this means that we are almost ready for sells, and what was left is the confirmations behind it. And that's why we have managed to take sells here, we have managed to take sells here, we can take sells over here. And this is what we did. We took sells here, and this actually ran for 1:10 before the NFP took place for this run up. Okay, and moving forward, we have another trade idea, which is the Aussie CHF, and this made a massive run towards 1:19, if I'm not wrong. And we are just shy away from our market take profit area over here. So this 0.64134 is actually our take profit on the weekly time frame. So let's just take a look at what is this. So I was just targeting for this lows over here. You can see this was our target, and we are just a few pips away, right? And now, what are we gonna do? How do we get involved in this trade? You realize that, first of all, step 1, break of higher time frame structure. So go and investigate. This broke a 8 hour structure, and then we go down to the 30 minutes or the 1 hour to look for S&D zones, and clearly S&D zones over here. And what we did was simply a break of structure on the lower time frame. Can you see this high, this low, this high, then the breakdown, and this breakdown was huge. Can you see this? Can you see the volume behind this breakdown over here? This is a strong sell. This was supported by volume. Volume is increasing. And when prices makes its way back into our supply zone, volume decreases. And this is how you actually use volume analysis to support your idea. Okay, please try it out yourself and understand that this may or may not work for some of the traders. And what we did was to simply go down to the 3 minutes or the 2 minutes time frame to look for a refined area like this. The buy to sell, and place our sell over here. And this made a huge run for 1:19. So moving forward to the market analysis for next week, we are starting off with DXY. You can see this is the US dollar, and we have a break of structure here. We have a liquidity high over here, and this leaves behind a demand area for us to work with. So for some of the brokerage, they do not allow you to sell or buy DXY, and this will be used as a framework or reference point for those who are trading the US dollar, and those are mainly the major pairs. So if you are looking at euro dollar, you can look closely with DXY because they are negatively correlated. All right, and currently you can see prices taps into demand, gave us a huge shift here. This broke structure again, which means to say that at this point of time, we are looking to buy into DXY's liquidity high over here, which means to say that if we are bullish on DXY, we are bearish on euro dollars, Aussie dollar, GU, NU in general. Okay, so now we are still looking to buy into this level, and whether or not it grabs liquidity before dropping off is another story on its own. And for now, our projection for DXY is bullish into this level. So now, starting with the Aussie dollar, first of all, you understand that we have a break of structure here on the higher time frame. So understand that this is the monthly time frame. If you are working with the 1 minute or the 5 or the 15 minutes, this does not really apply to you. So we are having an overall bias of the market and slowly work down the time frames to understand where are we in the market. So of course, break of structure here, prices taps into the high or the swing high of the monthly time frame, and now started to move down. So we are eventually trying to trade into this monthly demand zone here. Okay, so where are we in the market? On the weekly time frame, we have a break of structure here, and this leaves behind several POIs to work with. So you can see this is a supply zone that we are ultimately trying to sell from. And also, this is a valid supply zone as well. So really, on the weekly time frame or on the high time frame, if I want to participate in sales, I am going to sell at these two levels, here and here. So now, if you go down to the daily time frame and take a look at what is happening on the price action point of view, you realize that you do not have any POIs to sell from. Maybe on the lower time frame, like the 4 hours, you can see clearly we have a break of structure again here. And this means that on the short-term buyers, we have this supply zone for us to work with. So if we trade off this entire leg, this will be an 8 hours breakout structure. Going down to the lower time frames like the 30 minutes, and you can understand that we actually have a supply zone to work with. This is the refined area. And if you play around with the time frames, you can use different buy to sell, and all of these are actually valid for you. So work with this supply, look for sells before going lower, which means to say that we are actually anticipating buys into this area before dropping off. So do we straight buy over here? Do we buy right now? We do not buy right now. We are waiting for the market to tell us that it wants to reverse from here. And the only sign or the only signal that can tell us that prices wants to hit bullish if we see a breakout structure over here. This is of course a valid supply for the lower time frame traders to catch sells. But what happens if this supply fails to hold? Which means to say, if we have a move up into this supply and this supply fails to break lower low and instead taps into perhaps some sort of demand here and break structure, what does this tell you? This tells you that prices wants to hit higher, right? Prices taps into supply. This supply should bring us lower. But if this supply fails to create a lower low, we expect a breakout of this supply, telling us that the supply failed. And now, with this, we are anticipating a bullish move into this area over here, right? So can you understand that this is already a flip zone for you to get involved? This is the flip zone for us to catch buys into this area before potentially distributing to lower. So this is one of the ways you can catch the Aussie dollar. Next, we have the Euro Pound, and currently you can see that we are going bearish. We are selling and selling and selling. So now with this recent breakout structure on the weekly time frame, you realize that we are trying to go for sells in this supply zone. So weekly time frame, let's play around with the time frames and go down to the daily time frame to look for supply areas to get involved. And right now we are sitting at the supply area. So are we going to take sells here? We could go down to the lower time frame, like the 4 hours, and understand this Wyckoff distribution over here. Of course, again, buying climax, automatic rally, ST, signs of weakness, UT. So whether or not it makes a U-tap, it's a different story. And if prices were to break down from here with strong bearish movement, we can expect sells onto this new refined area to catch a short towards liquidity lows. But what happens if this doesn't do? Look at where are you in the time frame of the higher time frame market. Like let's say you go down to the weekly time frame, you realize that okay, now we have a breakout structure here, we have a weekly demand over here. So now when you are viewing this entire framework, do you realize that you are going to look for long? You are trying to look for buy positions. With this breakout structure here, we have a demand zone on the weekly time frame, and now with this slow moving market, right? We call it the falling wedge, or you can even name the Wyckoff, or you can see the transfer of wick into strong hands already. You can see sells or lows being taken out, right? Lows being taken out, lows, 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 and this may be a break of structure to go higher, to grab liquidities above all of this level. So yes, when prices breaks this entire framework over here, we are definitely going to look for buys into all of these liquidity areas. So now, with this market framework, you understand that we are currently in a range between this weekly demand as well as this immediate time frame. So now, how do we trade this if that's the case? Because we are sandwiched in between, right? We do not know whether this is going to be a sell to go lower or is this going to be a breakout to go higher. So you can just wait for one of them to fail. Either wait for this supply to fail or wait for this demand to fail. And you are not wrong to take sells currently because there is nothing that tells you that prices want to go higher yet. We need to break this structure here. Once this high is broken, then we have enough evidence to tell us that prices want to go higher to grab all of this liquidity at first hand. Otherwise, we expect bearish movement to continue lower to potentially break higher after that. And this is just a projection. Prices may react to this supply and continue to deliver bearishly to break this demand zone. So now, if you really want to get participation in this market, look at this on the weekly time frame. You have the 3-step process, the breakout structure here, this supply over here, and if you were to play around with the time frames, you realize that we are at a daily supply over here. And of course, the 4 hours would be our entry. We're going to see the break of this Wyckoff distribution. You're going to see a breakdown of this level. Pullback for sells. And your first target will be this immediate range. And your second target will be this trendline liquidity created over here. So this is my sell side liquidity. This sell could potentially make a move down to grab this before going higher. Over here, we have the Euro Yen, and currently we have a breakout structure here. This means to say that we are looking for sell side buyers, right? On the 1 hour time frame, we have this supply area for us to work with. So you can even refine this area to the last buy to sell like this. And from this framework, you're looking to sell based off this entire structure. So this is a BOS on the 8 hours, and then you are going down to the 30 minutes to look for S&D zones, and with that you are looking for an even lower time frame to look for the shift, let's say in the 5 minutes. So yes, we expect bullish movement again into this area before the shift, before the pullback to the supply area to go lower. So you can either wait for sells to happen over here, wait for the distribution, or look for buys into our supply area to go lower. So do we usually aim for this supply on the 30 minutes time frame? You could, but you understand that prices may react to the entire buy to sell, let's say on the 4 hours or on the 1 hour. This entire buy to sell is ready for people or for sellers to get involved to sell from. So imagine if you are looking for buys into deeper targets, this may not work, right? Because prices has the incentives to shift from here to go lower. So now if I want to be a seller on the sell high, I don't want to sell on the open of the supply area, and this is just preference. Okay, because I'm refining this area. It doesn't mean that if I want to sell here, it means that other traders want to sell here as well, or the institutions or the big banks wants to sell from here. They can immediately sell off the open of the entire supply area. So now, how do we look for buys up into this area? We wait for a high time frame shift, and in this case, I'm waiting for a 1 hour shift. Where is the high? There is no high created on the 1 hour just yet, which means to say that on the 4 hours, there shouldn't be any high as well. So what I'm going to see is a move down, grabs liquidity, break structure, and now I have structure forming for me to take buys into the sell to go lower. So only if this happens, only if we see another liquidation of lows, then the impulsive breakup, the break structure over here, and the pullback into demand areas, then I can catch this move higher like this. And if this doesn't happen, then just wait for sells at this level. So back to Euro Dollar, I am still looking for sells into this liquidity lows because we still have a breakout structure here, we still have our high being protected, and we have a sell side liquidity over here. So how do we catch continuation trades now? We look for the breakout structure on the higher time frame. You can see this is a supply zone. And what is the framework of this supply zone? You can see it has been tapped in already, right? Prices breaks down, taps in, breaks down. So we are actually looking for ways to get involved over here. And this is an impulsive candle, this is the news candle, and there isn't any supply here. So these may be ran. So with this, I'm expecting prices to reach out for these liquidity highs before going lower. And where do we look for sells if that's the case? We played around with the time frames and you realize that we have another supply zone here. So now this creates a cause for prices to go lower. And understanding that this is the news candle over here, and this is the demand zone. So right now, we have a story in play. We are expecting a buy from this level. And to grab this liquidity over here, tapping into my supply before distributing towards this 8 hours liquidity zone over here. So can you see how this story is being placed? We have a breakout structure, okay, of course based off the news candle over here. We have a demand area over here. This is an impulsive move that caused the surge, right? We are expecting a accumulation over here, move higher to grab liquidity here, to tap into the deeper supply zone that is still bearish from this framework to go lower. Next up, we have the pound dollar, and you realize that we are currently sitting on a demand zone. So this demand zone didn't break structure, you can see. It actually respected the supply and made its way lower. So the context changes when this demand breaks structure, pulls back, and we are definitely looking for buys to grab liquidity highs over here. But this didn't happen. The demand failed to create a higher high. And now I expect this demand to get ran. Okay? And where? I'm looking to sell over here, of course. or you understand that prices can make its way higher to tap into this supply before going lower, this is fine as well. So you realize that we do not care about all of this because we are looking for the 3-step confirmation. Right now, this is a 1 hour break of structure. 1 hour BOS, lower time frame S and D zones. Okay, so we're going to look for S and D zones like this. Okay, you realize that we have a 3 minutes S and D here. This is a supply zone that we're looking to sell from. Of course, you can look for other POIs inside, and it doesn't matter which POI you use. Why? Because we are going to look for confirmations. We do not just sell like this and then stop loss above this level and aim for liquidity lows. We do not do that over here in Sharks Academy. We are always looking for confirmations, which means to say that we are going up to the lower time frame, maybe the 5 minutes or the 1 minute, to look for the shift in structure, the shift from the weak into the strong hands, pull back into refined areas to get sells. And this is what we do every single time. Next, we have the New Zealand dollar, and you can see that there is a demand zone that we are looking to potentially expect a bounce from. So now with this huge movement, let's go down to the lower time frame to see how we can actually use the sell side movement generated over here to go lower into this demand. So this got broken. We understand that this is a daily break of structure. And now with a daily break of structure, we are going down to the lower time frame to look for S and D zones. Let's play around with the time frames. We go down to the 1 hour. And you can see clearly, if I really want to be a seller, this is the best price to sell from. And if you understand what you are opting for, you can expect a move up to liquidate highs, as well as the trend line over here before prices wants to hit down lower. So if I'm aggressive, I would have placed a sell here because I'm selling right at the high of the swing point, right? Otherwise, do the same thing over and over again. Look for the break of structure on the high time frame. Over here, we have the S&D here, and of course, go down to the 15 minutes to look for the shift in structure to go lower. So this is what we're going to do, and we understand that we are operating on this daily structure right now, and our point of reaction, or a place where prices may react to, would be this red zone over here. So now, based on this entire framework, we are still looking for sells. Next up, you can see clearly we have a liquidity areas like this. Prices are delivering bullishly, and I'm expecting a run up towards these two areas. So let's go down to the lower time frame to look for where we can look for buys. Prices test demand, you can see clearly over here. Makes its way higher, broke structure, and we are going to continue this bullish movement. And I'm expecting a buy from this area. Okay, if I want to be a buyer, I'm going to buy here. And I'm expecting a shift at this lower time frame to go higher. Of course, grabbing liquidity here, then aim for all of these highs. Yes. Lastly, we have the dollar yen, and right off the bat, I'm definitely looking for sells. This is a break of structure, and if I wanted to be a seller, I'm going to sell high on this time frame. I'm going to sell perhaps over here. So with this, if prices shifts on the lower time frame, we can expect a bullish move into this supply before distributing to go lower. So this is the framework for dollar yen. I'm definitely going to sell here if I wanted to look for lower targets like this. Otherwise, expect a bullish continuation on the lower time frame. Okay, especially if prices were to break this area. You can see lows, highs, lows. So if prices wants to hit bullish, it has to break this level first and then pull back to go higher. Otherwise, we expect a move down that grabs this liquidity, and if now we see a break of structure, this becomes the high. And if this happens, look for pullback, look for buys. Otherwise, we expect this bearish movement to continue delivering lower. And let's take a look. This is the structure that needs to be broken, or liquidity needs to be met. Why? Because on the 4 hour time frame, you can see this is a break of structure, leaving behind a liquidity point here. So this is where we are trying to sell into and grab this liquidity. And as long as prices didn't grab this level, we are still looking for sells. So right now, we have this huge impulse with this 1 hour supply zone. And if prices were to pull back now, we can still catch sells into this liquidity point.